Avi Melamed, a former Israeli intelligence official and senior official on Arab affairs. Avi, good morning. Good to have you with us. Now,
good morning. Thank you for having me.
For sure. Now, as we just heard, Iran has vowed to respond to Israel's attack. What are you expecting in terms of the response?
Well, the Iranians are sending mixed messages. On the one hand, they are kind of like underplaying the Israeli attack on Iran, which was very significant according to all information coming in. And on the other hand, they are kind of like, the Iranians are kind of like sending some sort of like indirect threats, sort of speaking, to vowing to retaliate. To the best of my understanding, when I'm taking into consideration different elements, I don't think that the Iranian regime is going to retaliate.
Okay, so there are some critics who have called Israel's recent strikes on Iran restrained, and they're saying that it shows that Israel can be reined in through diplomatic pressure by the U.S. But you've just said now that it looks to be significant attack. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. According to the information coming in, and I have a good reason to believe it's accurate one, Israel has been significantly crippling Iran's aerial defense capacities, among other things that has been significantly hit in Iran, particularly when we talk about the infrastructure that is crucial for the production of ballistic missiles. So, according to this information, even though the Iranians are trying to downplay it, and even though there are some elements that basically argue that the attack was not significant, this attack, according to all information, was indeed very significant.
All right. Now, American intelligence official Ezra Cohen said on Saturday that the October 7th attack on Israel was driven by Iran wanting to destroy the Abraham Accords, which the U.S. under Trump helped to broker. Others in that same conversation on Spaces X suggested that the transition to the next administration will be a time of maximum danger for Israel and for the U.S. What do you make of that?
Look, that's correct that the Iranian regime was trying to, among other things, to sabotage the whole process of the Abraham Accords, and particularly the Israeli-Saudi rapprochement. But today, when we are looking at the situation, the Iranian regime has been substantially hit. I mean, two of its major arms, Hamas in Gaza Strip and Hezbollah in Lebanon, have been significantly crippled. The Iranian regime has been directly attacked and significantly attacked. This is kind of like an unprecedented situation where the Mullah regime, that for all those years was able to dictate an equation where the Mullah regime was totally immune from repercussion, that equation came to an end in the last couple of days, last couple of days. So, though the rural regime still have, of course, in its possession cards that it can play with in order to try and to continue to dictate its radical agenda, it is definitely not the same place it was before October 7. So right now, I think that we are looking at a very significant pivotal moment where this equation that the Mullah regime so successfully, unfortunately, was able to dictate, that equation doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and I also heard Aryeh Lightstone, who helped to broker the Abraham Accords, saying that Gaza has changed possibly forever, and Lebanon too, since October 7th. And he said that a new Trump administration, if it were to come in, could not just continue its previous policy in the Middle East, that things have changed so significantly since Biden took office, that there needs to be a new tactic. Do you agree with that to start with? And what do you think the next administration needs to do here?
Yes, there is a substantial change, particularly when we talk about Lebanon. As for the Palestinians, we still have to see whether the lessons of what they have done to themselves by initiating this war on October 7, if they really internalize that lesson. It's not so sure at this moment. It's an open question because there are still Palestinians who continue to praise Hamas, even though I would expect there will be some significant impact in the end of the day in the context of the inner Palestinian political discussion. In Lebanon, yes, I think that we are going to see a different Lebanon in the sense that Hezbollah is no longer will be able to continue and to play the role it has in Lebanon in October 7, meaning he was the real boss in Lebanon. Today we see very clearly in Lebanon, first, Hezbollah is significantly beaten, and second, the Lebanese across the board are basically demanding openly and overtly to restore the sovereignty of Lebanon that was occupied in a remote control by Iranian regime through the Hezbollah. Here comes the role of the upcoming administration, the US administration, whatever the administration is going to be. There must be a very persistent and very significant policy that will help the Lebanese to restore their sovereignty by all means necessary. There must be a very strict and forward policy of the next administration to actually make the Palestinians who wants to take another path than Hamas to take that path, to limit Hamas capacity to continue and to dictate its agenda on the Palestinian people. And in that regard, there is something very significant in the context of the Western, generally as policymaker, as well as in the political and media and intellectual discussion. They must stop exempting Hamas from responsibility. Doing that basically totally severely damage any kind of like hope for Israelis and Palestinians. By exempting Hamas from responsibility, what they are doing is they are suffocating the voice of the Palestinians who actually wants to see Palestinians taking another path other than Hamas path, wants to see another path that is positive and constructive and not destructive like Hamas path. So I think these are the things that has to be taken into consideration when we are talking about policy, Western policy, particularly vis-a-vis Lebanon and Hamas. And when I'm talking about Western policy, I include into that, because it's part of that, the Western intellectual, media, and academic discussion.
I hear you. So just looking a little closer at Hezbollah, you know, you're saying that it's quite diminished, and it does look like it has been significantly diminished in Lebanon, but it is still there. And some Middle East observers are saying that it's planning a long war, a ceasefire, and then to start the war all over again. And they're kind of saying that until there's a deep destruction and restructuring of power in Tehran, that Israel is going to be in long-term wars. How do you see it?
Well, of course, there is connection between Hezbollah and Tehran. But right now, as I said before, we have to look at the situation in Lebanon. Large parts, the Lebanese across the board are basically saying to Hezbollah, the chapter that you basically was the one dictating peace and war upon Lebanese people against their will, that chapter is done and over with. And today, I think there's a great opportunity, but it's a long and convoluted process. Now, I think that basically once Israel will complete the whole cleaning of the Hezbollah's military infrastructure that Hezbollah built in the last 20 years beneath the nose of the UNIFIL in South Lebanon, once Israel is going to complete that mission, we will look at situation in Lebanon where basically that could be a very significant component that will help the Lebanese to restore their sovereignty. That is correct that Hezbollah, of course, is not going to disappear. Hezbollah is part of the Lebanese system. But in the end of the day, his role is going to be different than the role that he used to have in October 7, because until October 7, Hezbollah was the real boss in Lebanon. This role, I think, to the best of my understanding, is now going to be changed. Hezbollah will not be able to continue and to play the solid role of the only decision maker in Lebanon as it has to do up until October 7. But once again, it's a convoluted process. It's a long process. The Lebanese politics is very corrupted and very convoluted. And in that context, once again, I do need to emphasize the significance of the proactive role of Western administrations, of course, including the new upcoming American administration, whatever the administration is going to be, in supporting the Lebanese to restore their stolen sovereignty by all means necessary.
All right, Avi, great to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.